What happens when psychology meets artificial intelligence? In today's episode, we'll explore 8 science-backed laws that reveal how humans think, decide, and trust, and what they teach us about designing for AI. From why we panic when self-driving cars fail, to why chatbots feel creepy when they act too human, and how tiny UX details shape trust, emotion, and memory. This is 8 Science Laws of AI UX, a guide to building an AI that not only works, but feels right. Hi, this is UX for Solutions show and I'm your host, Sebastian Czarnecki. AI introduces uncertainty that doesn't exist in traditional interfaces. With standard UI, you click a button and something happens. With AI, the outcome is often unpredictable. Users don't just interact with it, they train it, and the results are sometimes very different and unexpected. And this is the moment when user experience kicks in. Many of the rules and laws that have guided UX for decades are still adequate and relevant, if not even more, when designing AI-driven experiences. First one, Jacob's Law of UX Consistency. Jacob's Law of UX Consistency states that users need to spend most of their time on other websites or apps, so they prefer your site or app to work similarly to what they already know. A home isn't intuitive because we read a manual. It's intuitive because the layout follows patterns we already know. Jacob's Law in UX reminds us that users trust what feels familiar. Digital products benefit from the same predictability. Formulated by usability expert Jakob Nielsen, the law emphasizes that familiar patterns, conventions, and interactions reduce cognitive load, making it easier for users to navigate and use a product without learning new behaviors from scratch. In UX design, applying Jacob's Law means adopting standard layouts, controls, and behaviors that align with user expectations while balancing opportunities for innovation, so the experience feels intuitive and predictable. Users will expect your AI to behave like other familiar AIs they have used, at least at the basic level. So when ChatGPT or Siri doesn't respond the way users expect for simple requests, they may assume it's kinda broken. Number 2, the transparency paradox. The transparency paradox describes the phenomenon in which increasing transparency in complex systems, such as algorithms, AI, or digital interfaces, can actually make them harder to understand. While transparency is intended to build trust and accountability, providing too much technical or detailed information can overwhelm users or even create confusion. In UX and AI design, the transparency paradox highlights the need for meaningful, user-centered transparency, offering explanations that are clear, contextual, and actionable, rather than simply exposing internal mechanics. The goal is to make systems feel trustworthy and understandable, not just open. The more intelligent an AI appears, the less users feel the need to understand how it works, until it makes a mistake. And yes, there's a quite dystopian possibility that we, humanity, will be getting less and less smarter because of an AI, but let's not focus on that right now. Let's check the next example, self-driving cars. You can find those in Los Angeles, California. When they work, users trust them literally with their lives. They don't ask questions, just simply enjoying their rides. But when a car makes a mistake, users panic, and this is kind of understandable. NNG's Gulf of Execution Evaluation refers to a framework developed by Don Norman, co-founder of the Nielsen Norman Group, that explains that users need to understand what they can do with the interface and how their actions impact the system. So, in other words, the Gulf of Execution is the gap between users' intention and the actions required to achieve it. It also measures how easily users can figure out what to do and how to do it. In UX design, bridging these gulfs means creating interfaces that are intuitive, consistent, and transparent, where users can both act without confusion and understand feedback effortlessly, leading to a smooth, satisfying interaction. Example for AI? It's nice to see AI chatbots suggesting prompts to guide user behavior instead of assuming people know what to ask. AI-powered experiences can create mental overload as users can't always tell what AI is doing. AI needs to feel predictable. Number 4 is Hick's Law. Hick's law states that the time it takes for a person to make a decision increases with the number and complexity of choices available. Formulated by psychologists William Edmund Hick and Ray Hyman, the law quantifies decision-making as a function of information load. The more options presented, the longer it takes to choose. In UX and interface design, Hick's law is used to emphasize simplicity and clearness, reducing the number of visible options, grouping choices logically, or guiding users step by step can help speed up decision-making, reduce cognitive friction, and create more efficient, intuitive experiences. For example, Spotify's AI curates a small number of personalized playlists rather than showing every possible song. The same goes with Apple's Music app. The choices is optimized accordingly to your past playings. When the AI is suggesting too many prompts, it can be an overkill. The Eliza Effect. The Eliza Effect is the tendency of people to attribute human-like understanding, emotions, or intentions to computer programs, AI systems, when the technology is simply following scripts or pattern-based responses. The term comes from Eliza, an early chatbot created by Joseph Weizenbaum in the 1960s that mimicked a psychotherapist by rephrasing users' statements as questions. Despite its simplicity, many users felt that Eliza genuinely understood them. In modern contexts, such as AI assistants, chatbots, and conventional interfaces, the Eliza effect highlights how easily users see machines as human-like, projecting empathy or intelligence where none truly exists. Designers study the effect to balance users' trust and transparency, ensuring that emotional connection with AI doesn't lead to false expectations. So, if your camera stopped working the moment you were about to capture the master shot of your life and you think that that was intentional and personal, that was Eliza effect. People overestimate an AI intelligence if it mimics human conversation. And that's something that can lead to bad decisions, overthinking. It's been lately in many news how users interact with AI, treating them as psychologists, which led to terrible consequences. The rule of return refers to a psychological behavior design principle suggesting that users are more likely to revisit or re-engage with an experience if their previous interaction was rewarding, meaningful, or left an open loop like something unfinished or worth returning to. In other words, people tend to come back to systems, products, or places that offer positive reinforcement, unresolved curiosity, or a sense of progression. For example, when someone spots you and smiles at you, it's more likely that you will naturally smile back. This is an example from the real life. In UX design, the rule of return is applied by creating habit loops like streaks or achievements, personalized follow-ups, or ongoing narratives that make users want to return. So if you want to convert this rule into human-AI interaction, people trust AI more when it's asked for feedback, such as following prompts, or shares excitement about your ideas. The Zeigarnik effect is a psychological phenomenon describing the tendency of people to remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. It was first observed by Russian psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik in the 1920s, who noticed that waiters could recall unpaid orders more accurately than those that have been settled already. In essence, unfinished tasks create a kind of mental tension or cognitive dissonance, keeping them active in our memory until they are completed or resolved. This effect is often used in UX design, education, and marketing to encourage engagement. For example, for showing progress bars, checklists, or incompleted actions that subtly motivate users to finish what they have started already. TikTok endless scroll combines variable rewards and the Zeigarnik effect to reduce the sense of closure. AI needs to tend to keep user engaged and propose him/her new prompts. This could trigger moral issue discussions. YouTube's recommendation system reinforces interests, creating echo chambers where users rarely see opposing viewpoints. AI-driven recommendation system can reinforce existing beliefs and may contribute to echo chambers if not designed ethically. AI's ability to shape what we see and when we see it raises ethical design questions. AI-driven content can create compulsive behaviors leading to radical opinions. Good AI UX should balance engagement with ethical responsibility. The pick and roll. People remember high, lows, and endings more than the full experience. The pick and roll is a psychological principle suggesting that people judge an experience largely based on how they felt at its most intense point, the peak, and at its end rather than on total sum of average of every moment. Proposed by psychologist Daniel Kahneman and his colleagues, the rule explains why our memories of experience can be biased. We don't recall them accurately, but rather than through emotional highlights and endings. In UX design, the pick and rule implies that designers focus on creating positive emotional peaks, moments of delight or satisfaction, and strong, pleasant endings like smooth checkouts or rewarding confirmations. Since these moments most strongly shape how users remember the entire experience. For example, if AI fails in a critical moment, ChatGPT produces offensive text, users will remember that more than all its good responses before. Summary. AI UX is about shaping how we experience artificial intelligence itself. AI isn't about data, models, or compute power. It's about people. As UX designers, we must bridge the gap between raw AI capabilities and human intuition. As UX designers, we are translators between machine logic and human experience. We shape how AI feels, how it earns trust, how it explains itself, how it helps instead of overwhelms. Because the smartest AI means nothing if it confuses, frustrates, or alienates the people it's meant to serve. The best AI aligns with how people naturally think, feel, and behave. So next time you are designing with AI, don't just ask, is this accurate? Ask, does it make sense to a student at 8 AM, half awake, holding coffee in one hand and a deadline in the other? That's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, leave a like or a comment. You can also check my Instagram account, Sebastian Char, that's my nickname there. I share a lot of design and architecture inspirations. Thank you so much for listening and see you in the next episode.